In the tradition of Malcolm X, peace be unto you. Malcolm X makes an interesting comment about the relation between time and freedom in chapter 11 of his autobiography. He states that, and I quote, "Months passed without my even thinking about being imprisoned. In fact, up to then, I never had been so truly free in my life." End quote. He said it was due to spiritual correspondence and the reading of books. So what was the nature of Malcolm's experience? I'll answer that question for you. The nature of Malcolm's experience was present tenseness. You see, prisoner, present tenseness is reality. It is freedom from the constraints of space and motion, and thus it is freedom from time. Prisoner, there is only one motion, and it is backward motion. One time, and it is a measure of that backward motion. Everything and the molecules and atoms of which they are composed are streaming in past tense motion. All that we claim to sense and upon which we base our opinions is passé because of what separates us from a present tense participation in reality. What separates us is a materially unbridgeable gulf. In prison, and despite its medieval condition, Malcolm got himself into a unique state of mind. He got himself into a state of mind that participates in the reality which up till then he had not experienced, because Malcolm had never been free even before his incarceration. He bridged the conscious gulf separating him from freedom. He realized that the idea of freedom he had stemmed from a false impression and led to false ideas. It was an illusion. No wonder he was at first expecting a gimmick to get him out of prison. For freedom, Malcolm learned, could not be had by the motions of his impulses, the fears and erotic attachments he and other prisoners had, which, like a ball and chain about their ankles, fettered them and the whole of humanity. It is our opportunity as a human being to become free, but only if we have the courage to change our mind, the courage to ascend in it into the true temple built without hands. For Malcolm, it must have been a joyous discovery. Freedom can be a joyous discovery for you too. All one must do is change one's mind. Present tenseness cannot be spoken of nor understood by terms of standard syntactical grammar. Syntax is the way our concepts are ordered in thought and expressed through speech and writing. Right now, the way your speech is ordered makes it impossible for you to know that your reasoning is askew and away from the truth of present tenseness. That is so because of the inclusion in your reasoning of illusory concepts. The inclusion of illusory concepts makes what is logical seem illogical and what is illogical seem logical. Many persons find this a difficult obstacle to overcome when studying the science of logic. So first, we must break free from the barriers of grammar. Yes, even our grammar is a kind of prison, which is a constraint on thinking, and which by social consensus limits the field of our thinking and turns our consciousness away from present tenseness. One of the major falsehoods of our speech is the concept of future. The concept of future is a social construction. For example, had Malcolm decided to wait for his freedom by framing his freedom as a future experience to be given to him by the state prison system, he would have never become a free person. He would have never become free, neither Malcolm then nor you now can have any experience but that of past tenseness. It's just a simple fact. Whatever we sense by smell, touch, sight, sound, and taste is passé. It belongs to all things streaming into the past. Our perceptions about those sensations are always late thoughts about experiences of things that have changed and gone on to other forms of existence. All of the mass in all of the universes are streaming energies into the past from a point of present tenseness. You cannot get free unless you reverse your conscious dependence on past experiences so that you can begin to know present tenseness. Present tenseness is the truth. If you want to use the concept of future, then the future must be the mind state of present tenseness. Otherwise, everything, including you, prisoner, is passé. The truth is that Malcolm X set himself free. No one else could free him. His friend, Bimby, could not free him. He could only direct Malcolm. Remember, Bimby told him that he had a brain if only he would use it. Malcolm began to free himself by and through his mind and his participation in present tenseness. He states that he discovered philosophy. He identifies one of them as Socrates, the Greek. Socrates was a descendant of an Egyptian named Erechtheus. Malcolm states that Socrates was initiated into the Egyptian mystery schools. He was by trade a stonemason or master mason. There is much that is implied in the short comment Malcolm makes about Socrates. First of all, Socrates was the teacher of Plato. Secondly, the major account of the teachings of Socrates is contained in the dialogues of Plato because Socrates did not write a book that we know of. It is there in the dialogues of Plato that we find the meaning of the message of Malcolm to us concerning present tenseness and its relation to freedom. Let us now turn and examine Plato's allegory of the cave as told to him by Socrates. Socrates described a dark underground den like a walled prison with cell blocks. In the cells are countless human beings moaning in anguish. There is an opening, as it were, at the end of a tunnel leading from the prison where the light shines. Socrates then says that the human beings have been there since childhood and that their legs and necks are shackled so that they cannot move freely. There they live in perpetual anguish. They have only a 0 to 180 degree field of vision because they are unable to turn their heads around. The children have known no other experience. He then says that there is a kind of fire and that it projects onto a flat, sheer surface a procession of images, some of talkative and silent men, others of animals, wood, stone, and various materials. He compares the scene to a puppet stage shielded by a white sheer sheet behind which the figures can be seen. Such shackled men and women can see only those in their own shadows. Socrates interjects, like us. They have never been allowed to move their heads. So what is this mindset of such prisoners? In this allegory, Malcolm must have discerned how Socrates distinguished between both light and shadow. Those terms are not simply used by him as metaphor, but rather are meant to stand for real aspects of our conscious predicament. The nature of light is such that it both penetrates into and reflects off of matter. That is one reason why we admire the beauty of a diamond. It is a rare phenomenon in our universe. Light moves at the speed of 186,000 miles per second through dark matter. Our eyes, like the shutter speed of a camera, are unable to simultaneously sense, and our brains unable to perceive moments of full spectrum radiation. We are limited in our perception to a small range of light in the spectrum of lights. As past tense impressions, just as prisoners are limited to full enjoyment of social freedoms. Thus, there is much which happens around us that we are oblivious to. Socrates speaks of shadows in the underground den, not images. Here, shadow is to image what smoke is to fire. The prisoners can see neither light nor imagery in their smoke-filled consciousness. They experience the lowest possible degree of consciousness. The shadows stand for the lowest degree of consciousness possible. On the other hand, the opening at the mouth of the cave is a metaphor of separation as well as possible freedom and expanded consciousness in truth. From the shadows surrounding them, prisoners draw fallacious conclusions about reality, which cause a contagious chain of imbalanced thinking, which trigger impulsive behaviors. Their opinions are weighted by error, and the irreducible error in their reasoning process is reflected in the macabre world they construct around themselves and others. Their mindscape is tilted like a building set on a faulty foundation. The echoes they hear are muffled sounds which they perceive to be music. Theirs is a world of shadow, which they take as reality. Theirs is a pretentious world. They do not know that they are participating in the end. They do not know that their world is passé. But as the allegory goes, someone moves his or her head from 0 to 360 degrees. They turn around. They don't wait for official approval because they rightly intuit that it will never come from officials. They come to know that officials are prisoners too. Now, unbound by their shackles, they trigger a chain of consequences which expose to them the herd illusion. The freed one now sees the herd to which he or she once belonged as a shadow of huddled masses stifled in utter darkness. They neither move to the left nor to the right, but each are content to be a link in a chain, brown-nosing the rear of another in furtherance of each other's false sense of security. The stench, of course, they perceive as the scent of a rose. Malcolm understood the allegory of the cave. He was freed from his shackles before he was paroled. His experience of time was exposed as illusory. He came to understand that by focusing and concentrating his mind on logical arguments above and beyond opinion, he could grasp science as the subject worthy of his mental attention. He finally came to understand the passé nature of his old lifestyle. One cannot step twice into the same river. Now he knew that freedom is a state of mind, and that if the mind is set free, the body will follow. This is Nur Ahmed. Peace be unto you.